There are weeks in a television drama when every event simply flows into the next, creating that familiar rhythm of secrets, arguments, evasive glances, and schemes still hiding in the shadows. But there are also weeks when everything seems to be ripped open at once, when every character is pushed to the very edge of what they can endure, when the past refuses to stay buried, and when the things that were hidden most carefully become the very blades that turn back and wound those who once believed they could control fate. The chain of events from March 16th to March 18th is not merely a string of shocking developments on Beyond the Gates, but something more like a storm gathering over the skies of Fairmont Crest, a place where every elegant face, every flawless outfit, and every measured word is concealing slow-burning rage, unnamed fears, and ruthless private battles that no one is still naive enough to think they can survive without scars. The next developments on Beyond the Gates will center on Cod issuing warnings to Isaiah. We can only speculate. Is it about Eva again? Meanwhile, Bill, and the question of whether he and Donnie could become the next Victor and Nikki, shares a difficult conversation with Anita. At the same time, Carlton and Kale continue clashing with one another. It is hardly surprising that they are once again on the verge of competing over Nicole. Carlton seemed to win the earlier friendly round. Will Kale come out ahead this time? Whoever wins, Nicole is unlikely to be pleased by how immaturely they are handling such a complicated situation. Monday begins with Naomi's worst nightmare, and what makes that horror even more frightening is not simply the threat of loss itself, but the feeling that everything in her life is collapsing at once, as if there is no longer a single solid place left for her to hold on to. Naomi has always been the kind of woman who tries to stand tall, who wears calm-like armor so that no one can see how exhausted she really is inside, how much fear she carries. How many times she has had to whisper to herself that if she just keeps going, if she just refuses to fall apart, then somehow she will survive. But the greatest nightmare is never just physical pain. It lives in the moment when a person is forced to face the possibility that the future they work so hard to build may no longer exist in the way they once imagined. If Naomi truly receives some new sign connected to her cancer, then it is not only a medical shock. It is a direct blow to her already fragile sense of control. She may be able to endure pitying looks, but she cannot endure the feeling of becoming the center of everyone else's worrying. She may accept pain, but she cannot accept other people deciding the course of her life simply because they think she is becoming weaker. That is why Naomi's nightmare may become even more terrifying if it is not only about her illness, but also about some secret being exposed. Some truth large enough to force her to realize that it is not only her body betraying her, but perhaps the relationships around her as well, all built on unstable ground and lies. Fairmont Crest has never been gentle with those who let their weakness show, and Naomi understands perfectly well that the moment she falters, someone will turn that vulnerability into opportunity. What makes this storyline compelling is that Naomi is not the kind of character who collapses and waits to be rescued. Her deepest fear may very well transform into her greatest rage, driving her to fight back in a way that is colder, sharper, and far more dangerous. Willing to cut away anything that threatens her control over her own life. At the same time, Leslie moves like a poisonous flame into Chelsea and Madison's wedding day, turning a dream ceremony into a battlefield. Leslie has never been the kind of woman who destroys things merely for the pleasure of chaos. What makes her frightening is that every move she makes has intention behind it. Every step smells of calculation. And everything she does leaves people wondering what exactly is hidden beneath that reckless exterior. If Leslie is ruining Chelsea and Madison's wedding dream, then it is not simply cruelty for its own sake. She may be trying to stop a buried secret from remaining hidden, a truth that, if it were exposed after vows had already been exchanged, would lead to consequences even more merciless than a ruined ceremony. She may also know something about Chelsea or Madison that no one else yet knows, and that knowledge may have convinced her that she has the right to intervene. The right to shatter everything before it is too late. But in the world of Beyond the Gates, no one destroys without also being driven by the darkness within themselves. Leslie may tell herself that she is doing what is necessary, that she is preventing a larger tragedy, but the truth is probably far more complicated. Somewhere deep inside, she may simply be unable to bear seeing other people possess a happiness she herself could never keep. The wedding of Chelsea and Madison may not only remind her of some secret, but also awaken the old ache of being excluded from everything beautiful, stable, and decent. Out of that bitterness, Leslie may turn herself into someone willing to crush the happiness of others just to prove that no one truly deserves peace. What makes Leslie's attack so dangerous is not just the action itself, but the timing. A wedding is always a place where emotions are heightened to the extreme, where any impulsive decision can leave fractures that can never be repaired. All it takes is one secret released at the wrong moment, one suspicion ignited at the right moment, and Chelsea and Madison may lose not only a joyful day, but their trust in each other forever. Elsewhere in the storm, Carlton and Kale throw themselves into a tense confrontation over Nicole, and this is the kind of conflict that looks on the surface like a romantic rivalry, but is actually much deeper than that. Nicole may have said or done something that touched an old wound in both men. One of them may believe he is protecting her, while the other believes he is the one who truly understands her. But protection and possession are separated by only a very thin line, and in anger, men often deceive themselves into believing that every controlling impulse comes from love. Carlton may carry the hurt of a man who has invested too much emotionally and is now beginning to fear that he is being replaced. Kale may enter the conflict with the confidence of someone determined not to lose what feels like a rare chance to keep Nicole in his life, yet the more he tries to prove his feelings, the more he may reveal an instinct to win rather than a willingness to truly listen to her. The irony is that while the two men are straining against each other because of Nicole, the person placed in the most unbearable position is Nicole herself. When a woman becomes the center of masculine competition, her own voice is often drowned out by declarations of love, duty, and protection. Nicole may lean toward one of them, but she may just as easily be exhausted by the fact that both of them love her in ways that leave her unable to breathe. This confrontation will only grow hotter if one of the men discovers something painful about Nicole's real choice. And when male pride becomes blinding, men are no longer fighting only for the woman they want, but for the unbearable need not to feel defeated. Ashley, meanwhile, steps into a terrible day at work. But in a world like this, a terrible day is rarely just about a simple professional mistake. Ashley may have lost her composure because of an error that seemed minor, but it is just as possible that someone carefully set a trap for her, forcing her to react in a way that makes her look guilty. What hurts most for characters like Ashley is not only the pressure of work itself, but the creeping suspicion that they were chosen as a target long before the mistake ever happened. Some errors come from ordinary human weakness, but others are designed to happen. If Ashley accidentally allows a serious oversight while her mind is already overwhelmed by pressure from every direction, then it becomes proof that she is being pushed to a point where she no longer has enough clarity left to protect herself. But if someone really has arranged for her collapse, then Ashley will have to face a different kind of fury, the fury of someone who understands that she was not merely careless, but hunted. Public humiliation in the workplace always has enormous destructive power because it does not only wound reputation, it also forces the victim to start doubting their own value. The harder Ashley tries to stay calm, the more violently she may explode once everything passes the limit of what she can bear. And an Ashley who has been insulted, cornered, and underestimated may respond in a way that makes everyone around her regret ever thinking she could be crushed so easily. By Tuesday, Donnie gives in to Andre, and that detail alone suggests a turning point that is as dangerous as it is compelling. Donnie is not someone who yields easily, so if she finally takes a step back in front of Andre, then the price of holding her ground must have become too high. This could be surrender in love, in a plan, in a truth she once swore she would never accept, or in feelings she has kept buried for far too long. What makes the situation dramatic is that no one can be certain how sincere Andre truly is. A man who appears at the precise moment a woman is emotionally vulnerable always carries both the possibility of salvation and the possibility of manipulation. If Andre understands Donnie's weak points too well, he may use tenderness like a blade, leading her willingly into a decision she will later hate herself for making. But Donnie is not some naive victim. Her concession may be strategic, a way to delay another war, a necessary step backward in order to hold on to her last fragment of advantage. Yet whatever the intention may be, the truth remains that some acts of surrender calm the surface while igniting a war inside. The more Donnie tries to convince herself that she is in control, the more likely she is to realize that emotion itself has become the force she can no longer control. And nothing is more dangerous than a woman beginning to suspect that her decisions are no longer coming from reason alone. Kat takes on another role when she warns Isaiah, and that suggests she has seen some danger drawing near, or worse, that she knows something is already happening and that speaking too plainly about it right now would cause everything to explode. Warnings always carry more than what appears on the surface. Sometimes they are protection, sometimes guilt. Sometimes they are the late cry of someone who has recognized the warning signs for a long time but acted too late. Isaiah may be standing on the edge of trouble far beyond his own understanding, and Kat may be the only one clear-headed enough to see it. But the problem in the world of Beyond the Gates is that the harder someone tries to protect another person, the more easily they are suspected of hiding something. If Kat cannot say everything, Isaiah will have reason not to trust her. If Isaiah ignores her, tragedy will have room to take shape. The strength of this storyline lies in that uneasy feeling that Kat may be right, but may not have enough evidence or enough trust from the person she is trying to reach to alter the course of events. A warning is always a form of helplessness. It is an admission that you can see the cliff, but you cannot force someone else to step away from it. Eva, meanwhile, turns to Ted for help regarding her mother, and that detail alone opens another layer of drama in which responsibility, sympathy, guilt, and power all collide. No one goes to a man like Ted in ordinary circumstances if there are other options. The fact that Eva feels forced to turn to him suggests that her mother is in serious trouble, perhaps legal, financial, medical, or connected to some secret that only Ted has the power to unlock. But the more interesting question is why Ted would help. If he helps out of duty, then this becomes a rescue colored by obligation. If he helps out of sympathy, it reveals a softness he usually tries to hide. But if he helps out of guilt, if Ted knows he played some role in pushing Eva and her mother into the situation they are now trapped in, then every action that follows will carry much greater weight. Eva is not coming to ask for a gentle favor. She is arriving with the desperation of someone who has run out of room to retreat. And people driven that far into a corner are often willing to do things they would never have considered under ordinary circumstances. If Ted refuses her, Eva may shift from pleading to exposing, from hope to revenge. When desperation is suppressed for too long, it always finds its own violent shape. Shanice turns to Aunt Monica as though she is reaching for a final source of support. And that suggests Shanice is running from something much larger than a passing problem. Perhaps she is under emotional pressure, wrestling with a wrong choice she has already made, facing a truth she cannot bear to confront, or carrying the feeling that she has been swept into a spiral she is not strong enough to escape on her own. Younger characters, or those still struggling to define their place in the world, usually turn to family only when they can no longer maintain the performance of strength. Monica, therefore, is not just an older relative offering advice, but a representative of a generation that has lived through enough loss to understand that some mistakes cannot be erased, only paid for in different ways. The conversation between Shanice and Monica may become a healing pause, but it could just as easily become the moment when an even more painful truth is thrown into the open. Because sometimes what young people seek is not honesty, but comfort. And when what they receive instead is a truth too sharp to bear, it can leave them feeling even more hopeless. If Shanice is truly resisting someone or being manipulated by someone, then this conversation may become the beginning of a rebellion. But if she also shares some blame for what is happening, Monica will face an even harder test, whether to protect her loved one or force her to look directly at the consequences of her own actions. By Wednesday, Bill and Anita have a difficult conversation, and this may be one of the most emotionally charged confrontations in the entire sequence. When two people with a long and wounded history sit down together, burdened by too many things left unsaid, then every word, every silence, and every glance feels lit with fire. Bill and Anita may be facing a part of the past that both of them once chose to lock away, because reopening it would mean admitting who hurt whom, who stayed silent when they should have spoken, who concealed more, and who paid the greater price. A difficult conversation is not always meant to heal. Sometimes it exists only to confirm that what has been broken can never return to what it once was. What makes this storyline so compelling is that Bill is not the kind of man who easily reveals regret, and Anita is certainly not the kind of woman who allows emotion to blur memory. If they truly go all the way to the heart of the conversation, then there will be no room left for polite language. What remains will be the naked truth about hurt, power, pride, and what each of them lost in order to become who they are now. In moments like these, no one truly wins. The only victor is the past, because it proves that it never really disappeared. At the same time, Leslie's home renovation is obstructed, throwing her into direct conflict with Vernon. On the surface, it might sound like a simple neighborhood dispute or disagreement over rules, but in reality it carries the clear scent of conspiracy. If Vernon opposes Leslie only because of regulations or order, the conflict would not become this explosive. But if he knows Leslie is planning something inside that house, then everything instantly becomes more dangerous. Leslie may not really want to renovate at all. She may be searching for something hidden, evidence, documents, an old object, or even a trace strong enough to expose a long-buried secret. And if Vernon realizes that, then he will understand that this renovation is not about fresh paint or repaired walls, but about digging into the past itself. That is why Leslie's fierce reaction to being blocked becomes even more suspicious. People only become that enraged when what is being denied matters far more than it appears to. The confrontation between Leslie and Vernon may therefore escalate quickly into a power struggle in which no one bothers pretending to be polite anymore. Vernon may believe he is protecting order, while Leslie may believe she is fighting either to reclaim what belongs to her or to destroy what others have tried to bury. But the deeper they dig into the past, the more likely they are to uncover something that will shake the entire structure of relationships around them. Joey appears again in another unpredictable shade when he offers his blessing to an old friend. In this world, blessings are rarely as pure as they appear. A man like Joey may smile and deliver gracious words, but deep down he may be pulled back toward a period of his life he never truly let go of. That old friend may bring joy, but may also carry old memories, unfinished debts, and emotions that were never properly buried. The calmer Joey appears, the more reason the audience has to suspect that calm is only a surface. He may be offering his blessing because he genuinely wants to close one door. Or he may be offering it because he needs to hide the fact that he is about to open another door, one far more dangerous and much darker. Characters like Joey rarely allow the past to return without a price. If an old friend appears at such a sensitive moment, then it is almost certainly the catalyst for new trouble. Vanessa turns to Nicole for advice, and this is a storyline rich with psychological potential because sometimes what people really want is not guidance, but validation for a decision they have already made in their own minds. Vanessa may arrive looking fragile, like someone in need of help, but she may just as easily be testing Nicole's response, trying to find out how Nicole sees her, how Nicole judges her, and whose side Nicole is really on. If Nicole is fully honest, she risks saying something Vanessa does not want to hear. But if she softens the truth, that same compassion may push Vanessa toward a disastrous decision. The complexity lies in the fact that Nicole is not a neutral outsider. She carries history, emotion, bias, and wounds of her own. So no matter how objective she tries to be, her advice can never be completely free of the shadow of personal experience. That means this conversation is not simply a quiet exchange between two women, but a subtle battle of minds where every sentence spoken may shape the choice Vanessa makes afterward. Whether advice becomes right or wrong depends less on its content than on how desperate the listener already is. And Kale takes some unexpected action, which feels like the final strike at the end of 3 tension-filled days. That action could be an attempt to win Nicole back, to walk away from her, to declare a position, to retaliate against some newly exposed truth, or to prove that he is willing to risk everything. What draws viewers in is that Kale seems to be standing at the point where love and pride collide with too much force. If he acts out of love, then the gesture will be deeply risky. If he acts out of hurt, then it may become an irreversible mistake. Unexpected decisions are rarely born from a single impulsive moment. More often they come from too much pressure finally finding a way out. Nicole may feel moved, shocked, or wounded, but whatever her reaction, Kale's action will almost certainly shatter the fragile balance that has already begun to crack between them. And when someone decides to risk everything, the real question is no longer how deeply they love, but whether they can survive the consequences if they lose. Taken as a whole, this chain of events is compelling because it does not rely only on secrets or superficial shock. It places each character under sustained pressure, where every choice carries the price of betrayal, loss, or regret. Naomi faces her worst nightmare and may be forced to fight not only illness, but also the secrets eating away at the foundation of her life. Leslie continues to be the storm that destroys everything beautiful around her, yet the more she destroys, the more she reveals that she herself is little more than a moving ruin. Carlton and Kale seem to be competing for Nicole, but in truth they are fighting for the right not to be erased from her story. Ashley may be struck down at work, but that humiliation itself may transform her into someone more dangerous. Donnie yields to Andre not because she is weak, but because even the strongest people sometimes have to step back in order not to lose everything. Kot warns Isaiah as though she is trying to save someone from a mistake already taking shape. Eva turns to Ted like a drowning person grabbing for the last thing that might keep her afloat, while Ted may be on the verge of paying an old moral debt he thought had long been buried. Shanice reaches for Monica as though she is trying to rediscover emotional stability in a world that is shifting beneath her feet. Bill and Anita are forced to re-examine the past through eyes that are no longer patient enough to accept comforting lies. Vanessa and Nicole sit together in what appears to be a gentle moment, but one that may still redirect fate itself. And Kale, through one unexpected act, may send everyone into a completely different orbit from which there is no easy return. That is the true appeal of Beyond the Gates when the show is at its best. It does not merely make characters suffer, it makes them suffer in ways that force them to reveal who they really are. When pushed into a corner, decent people can become ruthless, manipulators can expose their desperation, those who seem strongest can shatter, and those who look defeated can become the most explosive force of all. These 3 days of episodes are not simply an intriguing set of spoilers. They are a warning that Fairmont Crest is entering a phase in which every polite smile may conceal the intent to wound, every piece of advice may be a velvet trap. Every act of love may carry the shadow of possession, and every secret dragged into the light will not only hurt people, but provoke them to strike back. When already damaged people begin acting out of anger, fear, and shame, the coming war will leave no one with clean hands.